Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Ask Amity Show. And today I want to talk about separate tax IDs for your trust, whether or not you need a different tax ID for when you create a trust. So the answer is it depends. It depends on the type of trust that you've created. The first trust is going to be a revocable living trust. So if you become the successor trustee prior to the death of the grantor, then you will not need to obtain an EIN, an employer identification number, or a tax ID number for the revocable living trust. The grantor will continue to report all income and expenses of the trust on his or her individual tax return. Once the grantor dies and the trust becomes irrevocable, you will need to complete the application for an EIN as soon as possible so you can properly report all post-death transactions under that EIN. During the grantor's life, the trust is revocable and taxes are paid by the grantor as an individual using the grantor's social security number. In other words, when an institution requests an SSN or an EIN for trust property or for your trust, the grantor would just use their own SSN. When the grantor dies, the living trust becomes irrevocable and the successor trustee will then get an EIN or a TIN from the IRS. For shared property in shared living trust, the grantors can use the either person's social security number. When choosing which SSN to use, keep in mind that income on trust property will be reported through the SSN that you select. This won't matter to couples who file jointly, but it could make a difference to couples who file taxes with separate returns. So for individually owned property in the shared living trust, use the owner's social security number.
The next type of trust is an irrevocable living trust. So generally speaking, all irrevocable living trusts require a separate employment identification number, an EIN, tax ID. So usually what happens is when we set up the irrevocable trust, we will assist with obtaining this new tax ID under the name of this irrevocable trust. Generally, it's used with either the trustee social security number to apply for this irrevocable trust tax ID, or it's the settlor, the person who creates this irrevocable trust. We use his or her social security number to apply for the separate tax ID for the irrevocable trust. With this separate EIN for the trust, generally IRS forms and annual tax returns will need to be filed for this separate irrevocable trust, especially if there's income that is received by this irrevocable trust. And, these details, make sure to confirm with your CPA and proceed accordingly with your CPA's advice. With this EIN number, you can open a new bank account. This bank account would be under this irrevocable trust tax ID, so it would belong to the irrevocable trust separate and apart from the settler's social security number and the trustee's social security number. So if you're interested in setting up either a revocable or an irrevocable trust, if you have any questions concerning setting up these type of trusts and separate tax IDs or EINs, feel free to give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you and kind of go through a little bit more detail as to what would apply to your situation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and we'll talk to you next time.